So, I want to make a video about the free market, and this is one thing that I think that people generally don't take into account, is that when you've got right now a situation of bank loans and insurance loans and um, products and services that are not paid for directly, and a whole giant fucking mess of state programs and insurances and banks and everything thrown into the mix. You have what's really far from a free market, and these corporations wouldn't exist without the state, but it's hard to imagine what these things would be like. And I'll give an example, would be like healthcare. Kind of go off into a tangent, um, or like education, health insurance, for example. Um, Aflac would not exist with in an anarchic society, and here's why. You've got the whole system, and I used to work for them, and I sucked at it, but the job sucked too because it's selling, and sales jobs are all about the reward. They're not about the sale. They're not about the enjoying of sales. They're not about it's all about, ooh, can we get 5,000 AP, or can we get like this many signed and this many, interested in this many policies. And then you get to stay at Mackinac Island. You get to stay at fucking Cedar Point. And that's like the whole premise behind sales is, ooh, you get a goodie. Let's dangle the goodie if you get the company this much money, which is condescending bullshit and really does nothing to promote the you know job itself. But let's just take the insurance policy. Now, you have these people that are conditioned to believe that you can only get healthcare if you have insurance. But what if healthcare costs were so low you wouldn't need insurance? And the concept of that happening is to too many people just like so foreign and so out there. Um, so one is you're dependent on your job because to get the healthcare because the government made it advantageous, and whenever there's these advantages, people naturally click to these, um, adapt to these advantages, not realizing what they're giving up a lot of times. So then if you're unemployed, you're kind of screwed. But then let's say you've got this government program that lets you maintain your health insurance even if you're unemployed. Um, but like I said, if healthcare were low enough, that wouldn't be the point. If you had So let's take traditional health insurance is copay up to a certain point. The insurance company pays. Maybe you pay a little upfront, then they pay 80-20. They pay 80%, you pay 20, and then you pay, and then they pay. It's a really weird thing to think about how it's calculated. And I'm sure the various regulations have something to do with it. And there's those kind of companies are your Blue Cross, your Blue Shield. You've got a company like Aflac, I think, is more of a supplemental, which means that if you get sick or injured, they pay you cash money, and then you can use that money to buy medical bills or for living expenses. And I gotta say, like in the system we're in, it's a pretty sweet deal because there's no strings attached to that money if you get hurt. So you could use it to buy your healthcare, or you could use it to buy groceries or whatever. But in a free market, like Aflac is dependent on the fact that government healthcare costs and healthcare costs in general are so damn expensive that you can't pay for the stuff without having insurance. So they wouldn't benefit anything from it. It's like education. if you have a school that you could pay for and go and get training and then get a job, or if you go to, like, let's say the academy or something like that where you just go for the sake of learning, I think we need a division of those types of colleges. Say, okay, this is a philosophy school. You have ideas, you express them. There's no grades. You talk about ideas, and you have universities over here that are purely like job training. And I think that dividing those up would help people decide on what they want better. But it's the fact that we're dependent on the fact that these student loans are going to, get me through to get the job to then pay back for college. If you just went purely for job training and you didn't have to have math requirements and English requirements, which you're not going to need for the job anyways, then you would get your job. It would cost a fraction of what it cost you. There wouldn't be student aid because you'd either start a job and work your way up, or for the high skilled stuff like doctors, you'd make enough anyways. And I mean, you the interest rate would be lower. You wouldn't have to rely on the banks. And that's the crux of what I'm getting at is we have this system that encourages financial dependency at like every level. I mean, the Obama Biden thing extended health insurance all the way till you're like what, 25 or 26, and understandably so, because the way that people are infantilized through prolonged education process beyond what's ever necessary, you kind of need that, but it builds on itself. Dependency builds on dependency, and it's not only the state, it's definitely the people that bank on the state being there to make the money. And people just go along with this and accept it. Oh, well, that's how it is. And it's how it is right now, but it's not how it should be. It's ridiculous. We should have a higher standard of living for ourselves. We should have, uh, more wealth coming from the system, and we should have more wealth in general. We should have, more educated people. But if you can't, crunch numbers, figure out interest rates, naturally banks are going to take advantage of you. And, it's natural for them to do so. I mean, you look at Obama and people's psychological need for a leader, he's just banking on that. I mean, I can't say he's not a bad person, but I don't blame him. I mean, same thing with Hitler. He just banked on the people's psychological need and their panicked need for uh, getting out of a recession. And that's what we have right now. So it's this economic dependency, and people are so used to this dependency. That's why, like, this concept of a free market can be so scary. Now, I do ask people for their input on this video. I am curious what you think about, like, the best way of communicating some of these things. Like, what would, you know, life be like in a world where, not regulation, but consumer reports is the best way to find out the legitimacy of a product, or where education would be for only those who want it. I mean, that's where I get stuck sometimes, and I get frustrated, and I know I'm not the best communicator. So, any opinions, any ideas, definitely let me know. Take care, and thank you.